Alright, from my own experience, I know that figuring out what to charge as a documentary DP can cause some serious headaches. I've been there myself, but I feel like over the past 2 years, I figured out a few things. So let me share those with you. And hopefully, by the end of this video, you will have a much better idea of how to price your work. So the first step when deciding on how much to charge for your cinematography work is to figure out your day rate. From my experience, a day rate is the best unit to charge by. Some people do half day rates. I try not to do that. I did it in the past. But usually, even if you're filming for a half day, there's a lot of work that goes into the prep and then also that goes into the after shoot efforts, like recharging the batteries, cleaning the gear, maybe backing up footage, and so on. So, to make it simple, start with the day rate. Now, how do you figure out your day rate? I think there's few aspects to it. One, being your experience level, and two, being the location and the market that you're in. So depending on your experience, you will probably fit into one of these four categories. First one being an entry-level junior cinematographer. You would be working, short projects, maybe short documentaries, and you probably wouldn't have more than a year of experience. If you fall into this category, you would be charging somewhere between $300 to $600 per day, depending on your location. Now, the second level would be mid-tier cinematographers, and you would probably have a few years of experience. You would have a decent portfolio, and the pieces that you would be working on would be independent documentaries, branded content, and of course, short documentaries and everything that is included in the previous level. So for a mid-tier cinematographer, you would be charging somewhere between $800 to $1,200 a day, and these prices are without equipment. Now, third level would be experienced, seasoned documentary cinematographers. You would really be well established, you would have a solid portfolio, solid network, and your work would have probably made it to streaming platforms. Now, if you are in this range, I would say that your price would be somewhere between $1,500 to $2,500, depending on the location and the project. Now, these are just ballpark numbers and they can vary quite a bit, also depending if you're working on, commercial documentaries, branded content, self-funded documentaries, and so on. Now, the second criteria is the market and the place that you're working in. If you're a DP that's working in, for example, Czech Republic, where I'm from, your rates for documentary shoots would be probably lower than what I just mentioned. But because I mainly work internationally, everything I will be speaking about in this video are international rates. And, as you can imagine, the reason why I want to be working internationally is because I want to be getting paid more as a documentary DP. Originally, I'm from Czech Republic, and so if I was just focusing my career in Czech Republic, it would be difficult to make a good living as a documentary DP, I believe. So that's a little trick, if you are from a country that doesn't have a huge filmmaking market, doesn't have a huge population, and maybe the economy is still developing, then probably your best bet is to try to focus on international work to get the highest rates possible. Now, if you are a beginner level cinematographer and you want to, grow your skills and further your career, make sure to check my Patreon, which I have recently started, which will be full of cinematography breakdowns, documentary filmmaking tips, and behind the scenes from my own projects. The link is in the description, and currently there's a 50% discount for the first month of your membership. Now that you have an idea of which category you fall into as a documentary DP, I would think about what is your ideal rate that you want to get paid. Let's say that you're working on that, mid-tier level international jobs, so between $800 to $1,200. And in that case, I would always try to go for the $1,200 mark. By you always offering this rate, you show your clients, which usually is production companies, that this is what you want to ideally get paid. And from my experience, there's always a bit of negotiation, and you can always give discounts if you really want to work on a project. To be absolutely honest, in the 2024, I've probably gave discount on 70% of my projects. My ideal rate was between $1,400 to $1,500 per day, but because the projects I was being hired for were really good opportunities for my portfolio, and really good opportunities for networking and building relationships, I was happy to give a discount. Although, if you decide to give a discount, make sure that you always send the estimate with your ideal price, and then at the end of the estimate, you put the discount so that the production company knows what you would normally charge for a project like this, and hopefully on the future projects, they will be able to, to pay your rate. Another way to go about discounts is that the production takes more than a week. If a production takes more than a week, maybe 2 weeks, or 10 days, then I come up with the weekly prices. And the way I estimate the weekly price is that, I take my day rate, I multiply it by 5 working days in a week, and then I usually take away maybe 15% out of that amount that I get. That would be then my weekly rate. And if a production takes 2 weeks, it's a still really good rate to get paid because you are on one production, maybe you're not moving locations so much, you're using one camera package, and so on and so forth. So weekly rates are another option of how you can get the price a little lower if the client or if the production company is asking for it. Now, if you would like to have an easy way to estimate your rate, then there's also a link in the description of a video for a free Milanote template that I've basically made for cinematographers. And this template helps you to prepare for your future projects from the financial perspective, from the creative perspective, and from the logistics perspective. So have a look at it. It's a free download, and I've been using it for the past year, and I've been really happy with the template. Now, if you are giving a discount, always think about if you're getting something in return. I've already mentioned this, but if you're getting a really good portfolio out of this, if you're getting to build a network and establish relationships, those are priceless in the filmmaking industry. Or if you're someone who likes to travel, if you're getting to experience a country that you've always wanted to travel, that can also be a reason for a discount. But again, that always goes back to your values and what you value more than the money. So at this point, you should have a better idea of how much to charge for your day rate as a DP. Now, let's go through a few other items that you should also consider charging for. So number one, if you're going on a production, make sure that the production is paying for your expenses. Travel, food, accommodation. This is a standard. If the production is not paying for your food, then it's a good idea to give them also a per diem price, which basically makes sure that you don't have to spend your own money on the production. So depending on the location you're going to, you would want to figure out the per diem amount. But I would say between $40 to $60 should cover you in any country around the world. The next item you should charge for is travel days. And it's not always easy to get paid the travel days, but if you're working with seasoned production companies and if they really want you to be on the project, then they should pay your travel days. Now, the way I charge for travel days is I either take my DP rate and divide it by 2, or if that's too much for the production company, I might maybe take 60 to 70% of my DP rate and then give them that price for a travel day. Another item is scouting. If you're having scouting days, prep days, this is something that you should also charge for. And I usually charge 50% of my DP rate for scouting days. And the last but not least is your equipment. You should always charge for your equipment because in the end, those are the tools that you use for your craft. Without those tools, you wouldn't be able to make the film, and the production company wouldn't be able to make the film either. So they can either rent the equipment from you, or they can rent the equipment from a production company. For a documentary DP, it is, I would say, a standard that you have your own kit and you would come up with a price for that kit. What I usually do is that I check the rental prices, international rental prices for my kit. So let's say that you have Sony FX6 with, 2 lenses, 24 to 70 and 70 to 200, bunch of batteries, rigging and a tripod. So you would go to a few rental sites, you would try to put that package together as if you were renting it. And then once you get the final price, I would usually take 30% of that, and that's what I would charge for my rental. Now, this is very important because obviously by you using your gear, your gear is losing value it might get damaged, you need to pay for insurance. And so always try to charge for your equipment. I think there's two types of DPs. One type of DPs are ones who have a lot of equipment. And then when a production company comes, they basically have a full package. That could be a camera kit, that could be a lighting kit, that could be audio kit. And then there's the other way where you really just get the necessary things and then everything else you rent. I think both has its benefits and drawbacks. If you own a lot of gear, you need to insure the gear, but at the same time, you always have the gear handy and you're making money on renting the gear. If you don't own the gear, you have a little less headache and you can be more flexible in terms of what camera to use for each project. So it's really up to you what kind of personality you are and how do you want to operate. So just to give you a little recap. First, charge day rates for your DP work, figure out which experience level you're currently in, and figure out which market you're in, especially if you're working more locally or internationally. Now, when making an estimate, always go for your ideal rate and then you can always give a discount. But make sure that people know that you gave them a discount and make sure that you're getting something in return. When jumping on production, make sure that production company pays for your food, travel, that they pay for your travel days, they pay for your equipment, and that they also pay for scouting and prep days. And the last tip would be to increase your price every year by 10% in order to combat inflation. All this being said, I know that pricing your work can sometimes be tricky. And so I think it's always good to be flexible and always bear in mind that nothing is set in stone. And it's really you who decides whether you're going to say yes to a job if the budget is low, or whether you're going to say no and you're going to look for another job. Now, let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, and make sure to check the Patreon, which will be full of Zoom calls, behind the scenes, breakdowns, and already there's quite a bit of content that I think is beneficial for documentary filmmakers and DPs. That's it from my side, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.